to like read 5 different articles before I get one idea, and take that for the truth. And I was like, there's got to be more to this hype, like that this has been going on for, 3 or 4 years. And I know I had heard about it before because I worked for another company that's fintech. Mm-hmm. And they actually, help Wall Street analysts to find out discrepancies between whether they're putting calls are going to go in one way or another. So they were trying to integrate at that time, which was like 2 years ago, this blockchain technology, but they just couldn't find a way to do it. And I had heard about it then, but then I started doing some of my own research, and I was like, this is really super fascinating, because for existing databases, this could really change the way that we interact with everything, whether it's IoT, whether it's something that we have in our own personal transaction, whether it's peer-to-peer, whether it's like with a large database, as I'm saying, in insurance, medical fields, all of this is really going to change the way that we're doing business. So that's the fascinating part. Yeah. But that's the technology that's underlying. And they have the cryptocurrency on top of that, which is tokenizing things. And that's not really necessary for some industries, but some people are still doing it because it's fascinating and it's exciting. And when you talk about companies going through the ICOs, it's really just comes down to a great marketing campaign, and putting out some crazy designs out there. And we do that all the time, as an artist. I feel like being an artist and entrepreneur, we just naturally do that because we know how to promote ourselves, and we know how to promote what we're doing at the time to make it seem like it's the best. I've been around singers so much my entire life. And they just know how to promote. It's like a natural thing. So for me to walk into this position at a startup, and be the, marketing officer, it just sort of naturally happened. I didn't walk into them and say, hey, I want to be your, the CMO, promote me. No, it just sort of naturally happened. And literally I walked in with the idea of I was just going to do some freelance. I was going to help them out with their social media. Mm-hmm. And after being on the calls with them, after researching their business plan, their white paper, the website, the way we were going was going to be putting up a WordPress. And I was like, no. Well, you've got to do something different, and you've got to do something unique, because the market's already saturated out there with existing companies that are trying to do what we're trying to do. Yeah. And you have to be better than that. And you have to assess what's already out there first in your research, realize what you have, and then put something else out there that's your own. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we're doing right now. And that's what we're based upon. But I really like it because we're also based on community, and I'm meeting so many different people that either have an artist background. I think a majority of people on the team are actually all musicians in some form and some genre, and all have like a background in tech as well. So it's really exciting to see how the diversity that brings us together. And I think music does that, and music has that piece. And if we keep that going this direction with, the community space, and also this idea about having technology being better, for artists in some way, I think it could really make a difference. And that's where I want to go. And that's how I came to be where I'm at now. Very long-winded description.
No, it's absolutely fascinating on how,
okay.
How people's journeys change and unravel just based on opportunities available. So you said something very interesting that I kind of want to talk about, and that's your love of research. And so I'm very similar in that way, and I always now chalk it up to the fact that because I was a classically trained set and costume designer, I would spend hours and hours and hours before the designs, like learning everything about the time period and the people and the clothing and all kinds of things that were there. So naturally, in my current position for a tech company, the research part is the easiest thing because I'm always fascinated by finding out what happened beforehand and where things are going. And I would imagine that's very similar for actors and singers, because part of your looking into the role is finding all the background of the character and the time period. Do you, in your own kind of career, see that is there a connection for you between what you were doing in your, I guess now, your current positions now, and what you were doing in voice and opera on the research side?
Yeah, that's very interesting that you brought that up. Because yes, as an artist, as a singer, you really have to dive deep into where these stories came from. They didn't just come out of nothing. For instance, you have La Traviata, right? Which Verdi created from a book, from a play, and I believe it was the Lady of the Carmelites. It was based on a theoretical, a theoretical idea that a woman needed to belong to a man. It was also part of the socioeconomic status that was happening at the time, the turn of the century, in the 18th century. But it's really interesting because we research these things because it's a part of the history. It's a part of what has happened before. We want to understand that. And we want to be able to bring something to the forefront on our own. And I see so much in this age right now, and millennials in general, that this tech space, everything is just brought to us right away, that nobody is really interested in what's happened before, and nobody really pays attention to it because everything's just given to us in a matter of seconds, whether it's a television show or whether it's, a teaser or a commercial. And for artists, and people involved in theater, you really want to know where that came from. Like, why did that, where did that, nuance come from that they're feeling in that moment? Why is this character doing this and, in this way, or moving in this dress or in this set piece? And, when you think about, technology, we're all coming from, what Albert Einstein did, and even what Leonardo da Vinci came up with his designs. I mean, everything is right there as the basis of our technology, but nobody thinks about that. They only think about 20 years ago, when they decided that the computer was going to change our entire world. But it's interesting because I'm constantly telling my teammates that let's take a moment to step back and research, some other companies of what they've done, where they're at, what they're bringing to the space, and how we can be different. And let's do a comparison, because if we don't do this comparison, if we don't do this research, then our users and our consumers are going to do that for us. And they're going to say, well, how are you any different than this other company? Right. How are you any different than Apple Music? How are you any different than Spotify? And this is a part of the user experience and the testing of that. Because when you're bringing a product to market, and I'm still learning all the time, and this is my piece too, is that I really love to learn about every single aspect of business and what we do and what we feel and what we, our tactical components in our daily lives, and attribute that to why we do it. Some people don't think in that way. They just say, I just do this because I like it. Yeah. Well, why do you like it? Why do you want to go and, play and stream your music, versus maybe purchase, a per play download, on Apple Music? Because that's really what's happening right now in the musical space. Is Apple just, cut out their pay-per-play downloads, and now everything's gone to streaming. Is that really what the user wants? Is that really what everyone wants? Is that what artists want, to get out of it as well? So these are some of the questions we have to ask. And as an artist and as a researcher, you have to ask the right questions in order to get to the heart of why things are happening. Mm-hmm. And I feel like because we get so much information sent to us in all different avenues now, from mobile to laptops to television to ads, that we don't get to think for ourselves and we don't get to connect to these dots on our own. And I think that's going to be really important when we're teaching younger students or entrepreneurs, that you really need to take a step back and research what has been done before, and not just in a surface level, but really why people are doing what they're doing. That is the question you have to ask yourself when you're bringing a product or you're starting a business or you're offering a service. Because otherwise, if you can't answer that, then somebody else is going to answer that for you, and they're going to look towards somebody else or some other company for that to, really just to get their needs resolved or whatever they want. So,
yeah. In your own journey, let's say even in the last, so it's June now, 6 months from when you entered into the blockchain space, are there particular books that you have gravitated to, or like online courses, or even, let's say, mentors who have helped and guided your business kind of trajectory?
Okay. No, not really. Okay. I've not like picked up a book about blockchain, to be honest. I have not picked up a book about technology because I feel like I understand the human experience and I understand what technology can do as a part of that. So I'm really a classicist. I go back and I'm reading right now the autobiography of a yogi, because Steve Jobs, that was the only book that he had. And I was like, why is really the only book that he could possibly have on his Kindle? Or I was like, that's Kindle, his iPad. Yeah, of course. Right. I have the Kindle.
Right. You have the Kindle version.
But, and I'm curious. Like, I was really fascinated because I was like, he's like the best entrepreneur that we've had out there, and we're quoting him left and right. But he just was really into meditation, and really into quieting the mind. And I think that's going to be the biggest piece of, I think our silence is going to be probably our luxury and going forward in the next couple of years, because we're getting so much information. But I would say really just read all of the articles on Medium. That's really the best way. That's the best way I've learned about what's happening behind the scenes, as well as going to other platforms like GitHub. Udemy has some really great short courses too. Also YouTube, they have some really interesting ways of explaining what's out there, but it's clouded right now by a lot of these YouTube reviewers who are trying to give their own opinions on projects or things like that. So it's really just taking everything from really the past to where we're at now and kind of researching the future. But like I said, I've not really picked up a book on blockchain. I've gone to a lot of, maybe like 3 different conferences, and everybody has their own take on why we're using it and for which industries we need to be using it for, which is, it's complicated because the governments right now are really restricting any sort of ICO or use of cryptocurrencies. And once it gets adopted, I think by a large, maybe retailer or larger industry infrastructure, maybe like real estate, then we could see the tides turn a little bit more, and then we can understand that it might be more of a mass adoption. But a lot of the traditionalists that are, are in trading and Wall Street, they're looking at cryptocurrencies as it's just too high of a volatility for the valuation to work in our everyday world. And we are even looking at that too with our startup and what we're evaluating right now. And we are, pegging our IMU, which is our native cryptocurrency, to NEO, which is are the platform that we're built upon. So it's going to be interesting because all of these instruments now are related to other instruments in a way that you would never see that before. You would just see, maybe currencies or, the general sense, US dollar